Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look and installing the Hellwig Front Anti-Sway Bar on a 2019 Ford F-53 Motorhome chassis. Now, upgrading a front sway bar is going to make a huge difference every time you drive your vehicle. I've upgraded sway bars on many of my own personal vehicles just to give it a little bit sportier handling, but when it comes to something large like this, that's essentially a large sail going down the highway, you're going to feel that in the steering wheel. That sway side to side makes a little bit more white knuckle, and also when you turn and you're kind of just feeling that top lean instead of make a nice crisp turn, that's where a sway bar comes in handy. And the factory one is fine, but moving to a larger bar with a larger diameter is going to be a great option to stiffen that up right out the gate. And this one is made out of chromoly 4140 steel, so it's great quality. You have this nice hammer tone finish that also creates little pockets for the grease. That way it's going to stay lubricated a little bit better than the flat on flat surface that you have on your factory ones. As that grease can kind of work its way out, this will kind of trap that in there. And that grease is going to go into these bushings, and right away you're going to see pretty quickly the difference. First and foremost, urethane bushings are going to be huge. I've upgraded bushings on my own personal vehicles. I've done plenty on RVs, and it makes a world of difference. It holds up to pretty much anything you throw at it. It's not going to break down, and it's just going to give it a little bit more rigidity overall, which is going to translate to more sway control. And that also kind of leads into your connecting points of the sway bar. So factory end links on our F-53, pretty small here. So all of this can be super strong, but if it's flexing through here and this singular bracket, then it's going to lose that sway. Whereas our Hellwig, you can tell, is quite a bit thicker, just overall super robust. We have zinc-coated hardware throughout too, so it's going to hold up to all the weather that you throw at it. Now this is what your front sway bar is going to look like when it's installed on your motorhome, and this is a larger diameter that replaces the factory one. Not by a lot, but where I see the difference is definitely in the end links and the frame mounting. And that's kind of the cool part of this, is there's no drilling required. This actually uses all the factory spots, so it really is just a bolt-in installation. Now keep in mind these are pretty heavy, and you're going to be underneath your RV, and you need to have your suspension compressed just as you would driving down the road. So a lot of this will probably be done on your back. So it's a little bit tricky, but overall, step by step, it's not too hard to do. And I'm going to walk you through all those steps to make sure you get it installed. So let's take a look at that. Now to begin our installation, you're going to want to do this on the ground. You want the suspension compressed just as it would be going down the road. And we're going to begin by removing our front sway bar that's on there from the factory. And up top where your end link bolts into the frame, there's going to be two bolts. We're going to need to remove both of those, not just the end link bolt. And to accomplish that, it's going to be a 15mm socket on the outside and an 18mm socket on the nut on the back side. So we'll go ahead, we'll get those removed. So if you position your wrench right, you can get the 18 on the back side, and then as you loosen this, it should kind of hold against the frame, and that's going to make it a little bit easier to get this loosened up. With that hardware loosened up, go ahead, we'll get our bracket removed, and our end link should be loose here. Now to get where our end link attaches to our sway bar removed, we have a 15mm socket on the head of the bolt, and then our nut is going to be an 18, so go ahead, we'll get this removed. Now before we head to our bushings to get that removed, go ahead and get your end link and bracket removed on the other side of the vehicle. Now you don't actually have to remove the end link from the sway bar, but once you start taking these down from the bushings, it's pretty heavy and cumbersome, so just kind of making it as light as possible and having less things just attached to it's going to make it easier, and plus we don't have to worry about it catching on anything. So getting those end links out of the way is just going to make it a little bit easier. So now we'll head to our bushings, and pretty easy here. It's also going to be a 15mm bolt head, and then we have an 18 on the back, so we'll go ahead and get those knocked off. Now obviously as you remove the bolts on the bushing here, we're going to make sure that it doesn't drop on us. So once you get the hardware removed, you might want to just put one bolt back in with a few threads. That way it's going to support itself while we get the other side taken off. So now we can remove our bolts and get our sway bar, take them down and set aside. Now where we removed our factory end link and bracket, we're going to be putting our new ones in, and there is a proper orientation to do this. So we're going to be using these bolts. We're going to pass those through those two factory holes, and we want our bracket, it should have this curvature going towards the inside, so it should get narrow with both of them installed. And we're going to go ahead, get these hand tightened on. So I'm just going to pass the bolts through. And something you're going to want to do is check to make sure that there's no buildup or any burrs or anything along those lines. We need our brackets to sit as flat as possible. So if you need to, you can kind of grind away or scrape away at that. So I'll just feed this over. And then we'll take our nuts. And to get these tightened down, it's going to be a 3/4 inch socket. Now we're going to be coming back with a torque wrench right after we snug them down, so tighten them down pretty good. Now we'll come back with our torque wrench, and the torque settings are found in the instruction manual. And again, I'm just using my wrench wedged against the frame to make sure that bolt head stays in place. And I'll torque both of those down, and then we're just going to repeat the same process on the other side. So now we're going to want to get our sway bar underneath the RV, and as far as you can see it drops down. This hump should be facing down, so make sure you have that in the proper orientation. And we're going to go ahead and get our U-plates and our bushings in place, but we do need to make sure we grease it up, so included is the grease. Recommend getting some nitrile gloves here. We're just going to coat this all up. Don't be afraid to go heavy. Any excess will kind of push out. And again, with that powder coat finish that they use, that's going to hold a lot of this in, which is great. Sometimes urethane can make some squeaky noises, and this is really going to just kind of cut down on that. You can also do the outside where it sits in our U-plate. And then this is just going to slide over. You can see there's a split here, so just kind of get this in place here. And then we'll put our U-plate over this. And we'll go ahead and get the other side as well. Now, the factory hardware that we use to mount up to this, we're going to be reusing, so have that handy, ready to go. So now take your sway bar, and we're going to get this lined up. You might want an extra set of hands here. It's pretty hefty. Main goal is I'm going to just get one started on each side so it's going to support itself. We're not going to tighten this down because we're going to want to make sure that it's all centered up properly. So just get these in on both sides here. So now with this in place, we'll go ahead, we'll get our end links, and we're going to get these fed in with our new bolts. We're going to put a flat washer in place here. And same orientation as before, so make sure this goes from the outside towards the inside. And if you do have any of that extra grease, you can put a little bit of extra here on that urethane, kind of up to you. Put another flat washer here, and then I'm just going to kind of get this hand snug on for now, and then get the other side going. Now, something I noticed on this RV in particular is our AC compressor lines are going to be rubbing against this, and in fact, the factory end link was rubbing against it. I'm not a huge fan of that. Long term, that can damage it. Now, these lines, you obviously have to be very careful to not bend them or break them. So trying to get this out of the way is going to be key. But we'll go ahead, we'll get this all tightened up. It's just a point that I would make sure that you don't have this stud rubbing against this soft line. So now at this point, I would center up the sway bar as best as possible. It should be pretty close anyway, but while we're aligning this up to our end link, you're also going to want to make sure that it's even on both sides. Ours looks pretty good here, so same orientation as we did our top end link hardware. We'll go ahead and do the same here. So now this is kind of what it's going to look like installed, but we need to tighten everything down. And these U-plates are going to be slotted. So with that, you do have a little bit of adjustment, but what you're looking for is the sway bar to be as level as possible with the ground. So if you need to, you can raise this up a little bit to get that perfect. And once you're happy with it, snug those down. We're then going to go to all of our hardware. The torque settings are found in the instruction manual. These are going to be different than these ones. So as you go through, just make sure you're changing your torque settings for that. Now, once you kind of snug these down, you might want to double check to make sure that the clearances where your brackets sit on that factory spot and the gaps on the slots are nice and even. That way it's not going to sit crooked. So we'll go ahead. We'll get all of our hardware tightened and torqued down. Now, all of our new hardware that we put in on our end links is going to be a 15/16 socket and wrench combo. So go ahead and you can use those to get these tightened down. So now with everything torqued down, we've officially installed our front sway bar. So you can go out, take it for a drive, and start to notice the improvement. But you do want to know that this does start to loosen up as it moves. So you're going to want to come back and torque those down after being able to drive it. So start enjoying your new sway bar. And that was a look and installation of the Hellwig Front Anti-Sway Bar on a 2019 Ford F-53 Motorhome chassis.